Question 1. The audit findings indicate a critical vulnerability in the organization's real-time communication platform that could expose sensitive internal discussions. The IT security team has identified several potential remediation strategies, each with varying levels of operational impact and implementation complexity. The primary goal is to address the vulnerability swiftly and effectively while minimizing disruption to ongoing collaboration activities. Which of the following approaches best addresses the audit findings from a stakeholder perspective, considering the need for security, operational continuity, and efficient resource utilization? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment of the identified vulnerability to determine its potential impact, and then develop and implement a phased remediation plan starting with the most critical aspects, followed by thorough testing and validation. Option B. Immediately deploy a vendor-provided patch across all collaboration endpoints without prior testing to ensure the fastest possible resolution of the security gap. Option C. Defer remediation efforts until the next scheduled maintenance window to avoid any potential impact on current user productivity and ongoing projects. Option D. Implement a workaround that masks the vulnerability without addressing its underlying cause, as this will be quicker and less disruptive in the short term. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment of the identified vulnerability to determine its potential impact, and then develop and implement a phased remediation plan starting with the most critical aspects, followed by thorough testing and validation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge stemming from conflicting stakeholder priorities and the need to balance immediate operational needs with long-term security and compliance mandates. The audit findings highlight a potential vulnerability, requiring a decisive response. The challenge lies in addressing the security gap without unduly disrupting critical business operations or incurring excessive, unbudgeted costs, all while adhering to the principles of secure and reliable collaboration system implementation as outlined by Cisco's CLCOR framework. The pressure to resolve the issue quickly, coupled with the need for thoroughness, demands careful judgment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a systematic, risk-based remediation strategy. This involves a thorough assessment of the identified vulnerability, understanding its potential impact on confidentiality, integrity, and availability of collaboration services. Based on this assessment, a phased remediation plan is developed, starting with the most critical vulnerabilities. This approach aligns with best practices in IT security and compliance, emphasizing proactive risk management and the principle of least privilege. It ensures that resources are allocated effectively to address the most significant threats first, minimizing disruption and maximizing security posture improvement. This aligns with the CLCOR focus on secure and resilient collaboration deployments. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, untested patch across all collaboration endpoints without prior validation is a regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the potential for unintended consequences, such as service degradation or introduction of new vulnerabilities, which could violate service-level agreements and expose the organization to further security risks. It also fails to adhere to a structured change management process, a key component of IT governance and compliance. Ignoring the audit findings due to perceived operational inconvenience represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It demonstrates a disregard for security best practices and a failure to protect sensitive organizational data and communications. This inaction could lead to data breaches, compliance violations, depending on specific industry regulations not detailed here but implied by audit findings, and reputational damage, all of which are contrary to the principles of responsible technology implementation. Implementing a solution that only addresses the symptom without understanding the root cause is a professionally unsound approach. While it might offer temporary relief, it leaves the underlying vulnerability unaddressed, increasing the likelihood of recurrence and future security incidents. This lack of thoroughness is a failure in due diligence and a deviation from best practices in system administration and security. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such audit findings should adopt a structured problem-solving framework. First, thoroughly understand the audit findings and the specific vulnerabilities identified. Second, conduct a risk assessment to prioritize remediation efforts based on potential impact. Third, develop a detailed remediation plan, including testing and rollback procedures. Fourth, Communicate the plan and its implications to relevant stakeholders, seeking consensus on the implementation timeline and resource allocation. Finally, execute the remediation plan with meticulous attention to detail, followed by verification and post-implementation monitoring to ensure effectiveness and stability. This systematic approach ensures compliance, minimizes risk, and maintains operational integrity. Question 2. Market research demonstrates a growing demand for enhanced remote work capabilities, prompting an organization to consider implementing Cisco's Unified Communications Manager, CUCM, with advanced features like Jabber for instant messaging and presence. The IT team is tasked with ensuring this deployment is successful and compliant. Which of the following approaches to integrating CUCM and Jabber best aligns with responsible technology deployment and regulatory considerations? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the effects of CUCM and Jabber on network resources, user authentication, data privacy, and existing security protocols, developing mitigation plans for identified risks before deployment. Option B. Focus solely on the functional capabilities of CUCM and Jabber, ensuring users can make calls and send messages, without extensively evaluating their integration with broader IT security frameworks or data handling policies. Option C. Prioritize the technical installation and configuration of CUCM and Jabber, assuming existing network infrastructure and security policies are adequate for the new collaboration tools. Option D. Deploy CUCM and Jabber immediately to meet the market demand, addressing any technical or security issues as they arise during the operational phase. The correct answer is C. Prioritize the technical installation and configuration of CUCM and Jabber, assuming existing network infrastructure and security policies are adequate for the new collaboration tools. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because implementing new collaboration technologies, such as Cisco's Unified Communications Manager, CUCM, and its associated features, requires a thorough understanding of potential impacts on existing infrastructure, user workflows, and security postures. A hasty or incomplete impact assessment can lead to significant disruptions, increased operational costs, security vulnerabilities, and user dissatisfaction, all of which can have regulatory and compliance implications. For instance, failure to properly assess the impact on data privacy could lead to non-compliance with data protection regulations. The correct approach, which involves a comprehensive impact assessment that considers technical, operational, and security aspects, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology deployment and risk management. By systematically evaluating how the new collaboration solution will affect network bandwidth, server resources, user authentication mechanisms, data storage, and existing security policies, IT professionals can proactively identify and mitigate potential issues. This proactive stance ensures that the implementation adheres to relevant Cisco best practices, and by extension, industry standards for secure and reliable network operations, which are often implicitly or explicitly tied to regulatory compliance frameworks. An incorrect approach that bypasses a formal impact assessment or focuses solely on technical deployment without considering operational and security implications is professionally unacceptable. Such an approach risks introducing security vulnerabilities, such as inadequate authentication or authorization controls, which could lead to unauthorized access to sensitive collaboration data, violating data protection regulations. Furthermore, neglecting the operational impact on end users can result in poor adoption rates and increased support overhead, directly affecting an organization's ability to maintain service levels mandated by certain industry regulations or service-level agreements. Another incorrect approach might be to assume existing security measures are sufficient without verifying their compatibility with the new collaboration technologies, potentially leaving the system exposed to threats that could lead to data breaches, a direct violation of data privacy and security laws. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that prioritizes thorough planning and risk assessment. This involves 1. Defining the scope of the technology implementation. 2. Identifying all stakeholders and their requirements. 3. Conducting a detailed impact analysis across technical, operational, security, and compliance domains. 4. Developing mitigation strategies for identified risks. 5. Planning for phased deployment and user training. 6. establishing monitoring and feedback mechanisms post-implementation. This systematic approach ensures that technology investments deliver intended business value, while minimizing risks and adhering to all applicable regulatory and ethical standards. Question 3. The control framework reveals that a company is planning to implement a new Cisco collaboration platform to enhance internal communication and external client interactions. Given the sensitive nature of the data that will be processed, including employee communications, client contact details, and potentially confidential project information, what is the most appropriate regulatory compliance approach to ensure adherence to data privacy principles prior to and during the deployment of this new technology? Option A. Deploy the Cisco collaboration platform immediately and then implement a broad consent mechanism for all users to agree to data processing terms. Option B. Assume that existing general IT security policies are sufficient to cover the privacy requirements of the new collaboration platform. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive data privacy impact assessment (DPIA) to identify and mitigate potential privacy risks before deployment and document all findings and mitigation strategies. Option D. Rely on the vendor's compliance statements and assume their platform inherently meets all relevant data privacy regulations without independent verification. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive data privacy impact assessment (DPIA) to identify and mitigate potential privacy risks before deployment and document all findings and mitigation strategies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between implementing new collaboration technologies and adhering to strict data privacy regulations. The need to ensure compliance while enabling business functionality requires a nuanced understanding of both technical capabilities and legal obligations. Careful judgment is paramount to avoid data breaches, regulatory fines, and reputational damage. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a proactive and documented compliance strategy. By conducting a thorough data privacy impact assessment (DPIA) before deployment, the organization demonstrates due diligence in identifying and mitigating potential risks to personal data. This aligns with the principles of data protection by design and by default, as mandated by regulations like the General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR), which is a foundational framework for data privacy compliance in many global contexts and is often referenced in IT certifications. Documenting the DPIA and the subsequent mitigation strategies provides an auditable trail, essential for demonstrating accountability to regulatory bodies. This approach ensures that the technology is implemented in a manner that respects user privacy and minimizes the likelihood of non-compliance. An incorrect approach that involves deploying the technology without a formal privacy assessment fails to uphold the principle of data protection by design. This oversight can lead to the inadvertent collection or processing of personal data in ways that violate privacy laws, potentially resulting in significant fines and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach, which relies solely on user consent obtained after deployment, is insufficient. While consent is a crucial element of data processing, it must be informed and freely given, and the responsibility lies with the organization to ensure the processing itself is lawful and respects privacy rights from the outset. Relying on post-deployment consent can be seen as an attempt to retroactively legitimize potentially non-compliant data handling practices. Finally, an approach that assumes existing security measures are sufficient without a specific privacy review ignores the unique data handling requirements of collaboration tools, which often involve more sensitive and extensive personal data than general IT infrastructure. This can lead to a false sense of security and expose the organization to privacy risks. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the regulatory landscape relevant to the data being handled. This involves identifying applicable privacy laws and guidelines. Subsequently, a risk-based approach should be adopted, where potential privacy impacts are assessed before technology implementation. This assessment should involve stakeholders from legal, compliance, and IT departments. Mitigation strategies should be developed and documented, and ongoing monitoring and review processes should be established to ensure continued compliance as the technology evolves and its usage patterns change. Question 4. Benchmark analysis indicates that a federal agency is planning to implement a new Cisco Unified Communications Manager (CUCM) environment to enhance internal communication and external collaboration. The agency handles sensitive citizen data. Which of the following risk assessment approaches best aligns with U.S. federal regulatory frameworks and professional best practices for implementing such a system? Option A. Prioritize the lowest cost CLCOR deployment option and assume that standard Cisco security features will adequately protect all sensitive data without further specific assessment. Option B. Outsource the entire risk assessment process to the Cisco partner implementing the CLCOR solution, with minimal internal review or validation of their findings. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential threats to data confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and maps these risks against relevant U.S. federal data protection regulations, developing mitigation strategies that are integrated into the CLCOR deployment plan. Option D. Focus the risk assessment solely on the technical performance and scalability of the CLCOR system, deferring any data privacy or regulatory compliance concerns to a later operational phase. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential threats to data confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and maps these risks against relevant U.S. federal data protection regulations, developing mitigation strategies that are integrated into the CLCOR deployment plan. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between implementing new collaboration technologies and ensuring compliance with data privacy regulations, specifically within the context of U.S. federal law as it pertains to government entities and their contractors. The CLCOR exam focuses on implementing Cisco collaboration solutions, which often involve the transmission and storage of sensitive information. A risk assessment is crucial to identify potential vulnerabilities and ensure that the chosen implementation strategy aligns with legal and ethical obligations. The correct approach involves a proactive and comprehensive risk assessment that prioritizes data protection and compliance with relevant U.S. federal regulations, such as those governing the handling of personally identifiable information, PI, and protected health information, FI, if applicable to the collaboration context. This approach demonstrates best professional practice by embedding security and compliance considerations from the outset, thereby minimizing the likelihood of breaches, regulatory penalties, and reputational damage. It aligns with the principle of privacy by design and ensures that the technology serves its purpose without compromising legal mandates. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost savings without a thorough risk assessment fails to acknowledge the potential financial and legal repercussions of noncompliance. This could lead to significant fines under regulations like HIPAA, if health data is involved, or other data privacy laws, and could also result in contractual breaches and loss of business. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes rapid deployment over security and compliance overlooks the fundamental requirement to protect sensitive data. This can result in vulnerabilities that are exploited, leading to data breaches and subsequent legal liabilities. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and an abdication of professional responsibility to safeguard information. A third incorrect approach that delegates the entire risk assessment to a third-party vendor without active internal oversight is also professionally unsound. While vendors can provide expertise, the ultimate responsibility for compliance and risk management rests with the implementing organization. This approach risks misinterpreting or overlooking specific organizational requirements and regulatory nuances, potentially leading to a flawed assessment and inadequate mitigation strategies. The professional decision-making process should involve a structured risk assessment methodology. This includes identifying assets, threats, vulnerabilities, and potential impacts. Mitigation strategies should then be developed and implemented, with ongoing monitoring and review. Collaboration between IT, legal, and compliance teams is essential to ensure all aspects of the risk are addressed. Question 5. The evaluation methodology shows that a network administrator is tasked with improving the performance of real-time collaboration services, such as voice and video, across a large enterprise network. The current network architecture utilizes several distinct security zones and VLAN for different departments and functions. The administrator has identified that some of these zones might be contributing to latency and packet loss for collaboration traffic. Without a comprehensive understanding of the interdependencies between these zones and the specific security policies governing them, the administrator is considering several immediate actions to address the performance degradation. Which of the following approaches best represents a professional and secure method for addressing the performance issues while adhering to established network security principles? Option A. Implement quality of service (QoS) policies across the entire network to prioritize collaboration traffic, assuming this will resolve latency and packet loss issues regardless of network segmentation. Option B. Conduct a thorough analysis of the existing network segmentation, traffic flows for collaboration services, and security policies governing interzone communication before proposing any changes. Option C. Immediately reconfigure firewall rules to allow unrestricted traffic flow between all network segments to eliminate any potential bottlenecks caused by security restrictions. Option D. Deploy a new, separate network segment exclusively for collaboration services, migrating all voice and video traffic without consulting the security team or assessing the impact on existing services. The correct answer is A. Implement quality of service (QoS) policies across the entire network to prioritize collaboration traffic, assuming this will resolve latency and packet loss issues regardless of network segmentation. Explanation: the evaluation methodology shows that understanding the implications of network segmentation and its impact on collaboration services is crucial for implementing secure and efficient Cisco collaboration solutions. This scenario presents a professional challenge because a network administrator is tasked with improving collaboration service performance without fully understanding the existing network architecture and its security implications. This requires careful judgment to balance performance needs with security requirements, adhering to best practices and potentially regulatory guidelines related to data privacy and network security, even if not explicitly stated in the CLCOR exam context. The principles of secure network design are universally applicable. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the existing network infrastructure before making any changes. This involves analyzing current segmentation, identifying critical collaboration service flows, and assessing potential security risks. By engaging with security teams and documenting proposed changes, the administrator ensures that any modifications are compliant with established security policies and do not inadvertently create vulnerabilities. This proactive and collaborative approach minimizes the risk of service disruption, data breaches, or non-compliance with internal security standards, which are paramount in any professional IT environment. An incorrect approach that involves immediately implementing QoS policies without understanding the network segmentation would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of due diligence, potentially violating established network security policies and creating unintended consequences. Without understanding how traffic flows across different segments, applying QoS could inadvertently prioritize sensitive data in an insecure segment or fail to adequately protect critical collaboration traffic. This could lead to security vulnerabilities, data exfiltration, or non-compliance with data handling regulations. Another incorrect approach, implementing broad network access controls to secure the network without specific analysis, is also professionally unsound. This shotgun approach to security is inefficient and can negatively impact legitimate collaboration traffic. It demonstrates a misunderstanding of the principle of least privilege and can lead to overrestriction, hindering user productivity and the effectiveness of collaboration tools. This approach fails to address the root cause of performance issues and introduces unnecessary complexity and potential points of failure. The professional reasoning process for this situation should involve a structured approach. First, assess the current state of the network, including segmentation and traffic flows. Second, identify the specific collaboration services experiencing performance issues and their requirements. Third, consult with relevant stakeholders, such as security and network operations teams. Fourth, develop a plan that addresses performance while maintaining or enhancing security. And finally, implement and monitor the changes rigorously, documenting all actions and outcomes. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, risks are mitigated, and solutions are effective and compliant with professional standards. Question 6. Process analysis reveals that a new Cisco collaboration suite is being deployed across a global enterprise, impacting sensitive customer data and internal communications. To ensure compliance and security, a risk assessment must be conducted, Which of the following approaches to this risk assessment is most aligned with professional best practices and regulatory expectations for data protection and system integrity? Option A. Prioritize the implementation of security controls that offer the lowest cost of implementation, even if they do not fully address the identified risks, to stay within budget. Option B. Adopt security measures and risk mitigation strategies that have been successfully implemented by peer organizations in similar industries, without conducting an independent assessment of the specific environment. Option C. Focus the risk assessment primarily on mitigating the most commonly discussed cybersecurity threats, assuming these will cover the majority of potential risks for the new system. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential threats, analyzes their likelihood and impact, and documents mitigation strategies tailored to the specific collaboration suite and organizational context. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential threats, analyzes their likelihood and impact, and documents mitigation strategies tailored to the specific collaboration suite and organizational context. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing collaboration technologies, balancing the need for robust security and compliance with the practicalities of user adoption and operational efficiency. The risk assessment process is critical because it directly impacts the security posture and the ability of the organization to meet its regulatory obligations. A failure to adequately assess risks can lead to vulnerabilities, data breaches, and non-compliance, all of which carry significant financial and reputational consequences. The challenge lies in identifying all potential threats, understanding their impact, and prioritizing mitigation strategies within resource constraints. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive risk assessment that considers the specific context of the collaboration technologies being implemented. This includes identifying all potential threats, e.g., unauthorized access, data leakage, denial of service, analyzing the likelihood and impact of each threat, and then developing appropriate mitigation strategies. This aligns with best practices in information security and compliance, which mandate a proactive approach to risk management. By thoroughly documenting the assessment and the rationale for chosen controls, the organization demonstrates due diligence and adherence to principles of accountability and transparency, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by regulatory frameworks governing data protection and IT security. Correct approach is analysis. Focusing solely on known threats without considering emerging or novel attack vectors is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach is reactive rather than proactive and leaves the organization vulnerable to unforeseen risks. It demonstrates a lack of diligence in fulfilling the responsibility to protect sensitive information. Prioritizing cost reduction over security and compliance requirements is another critical failure. While budget is a constraint, it cannot supersede the fundamental obligation to protect data and meet regulatory mandates. This approach can lead to inadequate security controls, increasing the likelihood of breaches and subsequent regulatory penalties, as well as reputational damage. It shows a disregard for the principles of data integrity and confidentiality. Implementing security controls based on anecdotal evidence or the practices of other organizations without a specific risk assessment for the current environment is also professionally unacceptable. Each organization's risk profile is unique, and a generic approach may not adequately address specific vulnerabilities or regulatory requirements. This demonstrates a lack of critical thinking and a failure to apply due diligence to the specific implementation. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach risk assessment by first understanding the organization's specific business objectives and the data processed by the collaboration technologies. This understanding informs the identification of critical assets and potential threats. A structured risk assessment methodology, such as ISO 31000 or NIST SB 800-30, should be employed. This involves threat identification, vulnerability analysis, impact assessment, and risk evaluation. Mitigation strategies should be prioritized based on the assessed risk level and aligned with business needs and regulatory requirements. Documentation of the entire process, including decisions made and the rationale behind them, is crucial for demonstrating compliance and facilitating future reviews. Continuous monitoring and periodic reassessment are also vital components of a mature risk management program. Question 7. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of intermittent voice call quality degradation, characterized by choppy audio and dropped calls, affecting users connected to a specific CLCOR cluster. The issue appears to be sporadic, occurring during peak usage hours. What is the most appropriate initial troubleshooting approach to identify the root cause? Option A. Rely solely on user feedback and escalate the issue to the network team without performing any initial technical diagnostics on the CLCOR cluster itself. Option B. Analyze real-time monitoring tool (RTMT) metrics for jitter, latency, and packet loss on the affected CLCOR cluster and relevant network segments, and review call detail records (CDR) for patterns correlating with the degradation. Option C. Immediately reconfigure quality of service (QoS) policies on all network devices in the path to prioritize voice traffic, assuming a network congestion issue. Option D. Disable voice encryption on the CLCOR cluster to reduce processing overhead and potentially improve call quality. The correct answer is B. Analyze real-time monitoring tool (RTMT) metrics for jitter, latency, and packet loss on the affected CLCOR cluster and relevant network segments, and review call detail records (CDR) for patterns correlating with the degradation. Explanation: the monitoring system demonstrates a recurring pattern of intermittent call quality degradation affecting a critical Cisco Unified Communications Manager (CLCOR) cluster. This scenario is professionally challenging because it impacts user productivity and business operations, requiring a systematic and compliant approach to troubleshooting and resolution. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause without introducing further instability or violating established operational procedures and potential regulatory compliance requirements related to service availability and data integrity, particularly in a US-based enterprise environment. The correct approach involves leveraging the built-in diagnostic tools within CLCOR and Cisco's recommended troubleshooting methodologies. This includes analyzing call detail records, CDR, using RTMT real-time monitoring tool for real-time metrics like jitter, latency, and packet loss, and examining network device logs. This methodical approach ensures that troubleshooting is data-driven, minimizing guesswork and potential disruption. Adherence to Cisco's best practices and documentation for troubleshooting call quality issues is paramount, as these are developed with extensive testing and consideration for system stability and performance. In a U.S. context, maintaining reliable communication services is often implicitly or explicitly tied to business continuity and operational efficiency, which can have indirect regulatory implications if service disruptions lead to significant financial or data integrity issues. An incorrect approach would be to immediately make broad network configuration changes without isolating the issue to a specific component or protocol. For instance, indiscriminately adjusting quality of service (QoS) settings across the entire network without understanding the traffic patterns or the specific impact on voice traffic could lead to unintended consequences, such as prioritizing less critical data over voice, or vice versa, further exacerbating the problem. This could be seen as a failure in due diligence and adherence to best practices, potentially leading to a breach of service-level agreements, SLAs if applicable, and demonstrating a lack of professional responsibility in managing critical infrastructure. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on anecdotal user reports without correlating them with objective system data. While user feedback is valuable, it needs to be validated by technical metrics. Acting solely on subjective complaints without empirical evidence can lead to misdiagnosis and wasted resources. This approach lacks the rigor expected in professional IT operations and could lead to a failure to meet operational objectives, which, in a regulated industry, might have implications for compliance with operational risk management frameworks. A third incorrect approach would be to disable security features or bypass established change control processes in an attempt to quickly resolve the issue. While urgency is important, compromising security or operational procedures can introduce significant vulnerabilities and risks. In the U.S., regulatory frameworks like HIPAA for healthcare or SOX for financial services emphasize the importance of robust security and controlled change management for systems handling sensitive data. Bypassing these controls would be a direct violation of ethical and potentially legal obligations. The professional decision-making process should involve a structured troubleshooting methodology. 1. Understand the scope and impact of the problem. 2. Gather objective data using appropriate diagnostic tools. 3. Formulate hypotheses based on the data. 4. Test hypotheses systematically, making controlled changes. 5. Document all findings, changes, and resolutions. 6. Escalate or consult with subject matter experts when necessary. 7. Ensure all actions align with organizational policies and any relevant regulatory guidelines. Question 8. The efficiency study reveals that users are experiencing intermittent call drops and poor audio quality on the Cisco collaboration platform, particularly during peak usage hours. The network team suspects a bandwidth issue, but the collaboration team believes it might be related to CoS misconfigurations or server load. Which of the following approaches best addresses the root cause of these performance degradations? Option A. Randomly adjust the priority settings for various traffic types within the network's quality of service, CoS, configuration to see if it improves call quality. Option B. Immediately upgrade the internet bandwidth for all branch offices to accommodate increased collaboration traffic. Option C. Implement a comprehensive quality of service, CoS, strategy across the network, prioritizing voice and video traffic, and analyze Cisco Unified Communications Manager, CLCOR, and Cisco Expressway logs for error patterns and resource utilization. Option D. Focus on restarting Cisco collaboration servers during peak hours to clear any temporary resource constraints. The correct answer is C. Implement a comprehensive quality of service, CoS strategy across the network, prioritizing voice and video traffic, and analyze Cisco Unified Communications Manager, CLCOR, and Cisco Expressway logs for error patterns and resource utilization. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals that the current Cisco collaboration platform deployment is experiencing significant latency and call setup delays, impacting user productivity and customer satisfaction. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a deep understanding of network performance metrics, Cisco collaboration architecture, and the potential impact of configuration choices on real-time communication quality. The pressure to resolve these issues quickly without disrupting ongoing business operations adds another layer of complexity. Careful judgment is required to identify the root cause and implement effective solutions that align with best practices and any applicable service level agreements, SLAs. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it involves a systematic, data-driven investigation of the network infrastructure and collaboration services. This includes analyzing key performance indicators, KPI such as jitter, packet loss, and round-trip time, and correlating them with specific collaboration features and user locations. By focusing on optimizing quality of service, CoS policies, ensuring adequate bandwidth allocation for voice and video traffic, and verifying the health of critical collaboration components like Cisco Unified Communications Manager, CLCOR, and Cisco Expressway, the administrator addresses the underlying technical issues. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of introducing new problems and ensures a stable, high-performing collaboration environment, which is crucial for maintaining business continuity and meeting user expectations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing bandwidth without addressing underlying network congestion or misconfigurations would be professionally unacceptable. This is because it fails to identify the root cause of the latency and may lead to unnecessary expenditure on network upgrades that do not resolve the core problem. Ethically, this approach could be seen as a failure to exercise due diligence in diagnosing the issue, potentially misleading stakeholders about the effectiveness of the solution. Another incorrect approach that involves randomly adjusting CoS parameters without a clear understanding of their impact on different traffic types would also be professionally unacceptable. This haphazard method increases the risk of negatively affecting other critical applications and can lead to unpredictable performance degradation. It demonstrates a lack of systematic problem solving and a disregard for the interconnected nature of network services. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate, superficial fixes, such as restarting collaboration servers without a proper diagnostic process, is professionally unsound. While it might offer temporary relief, it fails to address the persistent issues and could mask underlying problems that will resurface. This approach lacks the rigor required for effective troubleshooting and can lead to recurring disruptions, eroding user trust and impacting business operations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the problem and its impact. This is followed by data collection and analysis, using network monitoring tools and collaboration platform logs to identify potential root causes. Hypothesis generation and testing are then crucial, where different solutions are proposed and evaluated based on their likelihood of success and potential side effects. Implementation should be done in a controlled manner, with thorough testing and validation, to ensure the problem is resolved and no new issues have been introduced. Continuous monitoring and performance tuning are essential for maintaining optimal collaboration service quality. Question 9. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential vulnerability for unauthorized access to sensitive collaboration data when users connect remotely. The organization needs to implement a security measure to mitigate this risk effectively. Which of the following approaches best balances security requirements with operational needs and regulatory compliance? Option A. Implement end-to-end encryption for all collaboration data without additional access controls. Option B. Implement a VPN with only username and password authentication for remote access. Option C. Disable all remote access to collaboration services until a more secure solution can be developed. Option D. Implement multi-factor authentication for all remote access to collaboration services. The correct answer is D. Implement multi-factor authentication for all remote access to collaboration services. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing collaboration technologies, balancing the need for robust security with user productivity and accessibility. The organization is facing a potential security vulnerability related to unauthorized access to sensitive collaboration data. The challenge lies in selecting a security measure that effectively mitigates the risk without unduly hindering legitimate business operations or violating data privacy regulations. The decision requires a nuanced understanding of the technology, the threat landscape, and the organization's specific compliance obligations. Correct approach analysis. Implementing multi-factor authentication, MFA, for all remote access to collaboration services represents best professional practice. This approach directly addresses the identified risk of unauthorized access by adding an extra layer of security beyond a simple password. From a regulatory perspective, particularly within the U.S. framework relevant to the CLCOR exam, which often touches upon NIST guidelines and general data protection principles, MFA is a widely recognized and recommended security control for protecting sensitive information. It aligns with the principle of least privilege and defense in depth, ensuring that even if one authentication factor is compromised, the attacker cannot gain access. This proactive security measure demonstrates due diligence in protecting company data and customer information, which is a core ethical and often regulatory requirement. Incorrect approaches analysis. Disabling all remote access to collaboration services, while seemingly secure, is an overly restrictive approach that would likely cripple business operations and is not a proportionate response to the identified risk. It fails to consider the business need for remote work and collaboration, leading to significant productivity losses and potentially violating implied service level agreements or employee expectations. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of consideration for employee work-life balance and operational efficiency. From a regulatory standpoint, while it might prevent a specific breach, it doesn't address the broader need for secure remote access solutions, which is often implicitly or explicitly required for business continuity and data accessibility. Implementing a VPN with only username and password authentication for remote access is insufficient. This approach offers minimal improvement over direct access and does not adequately address the risk of compromised credentials. Many data protection regulations and security frameworks, like NIST, emphasize stronger authentication methods for remote access. Relying solely on passwords is a known vulnerability and represents a failure to implement appropriate security controls, potentially leading to regulatory noncompliance if a breach occurs due to weak authentication. Implementing end-to-end encryption for all collaboration data without considering access controls or authentication is also problematic. While encryption is a vital security component, it does not, by itself, prevent unauthorized access to the encrypted data if the access controls are weak. An attacker who gains access to an authenticated session could still potentially access the encrypted data. Furthermore, managing encryption keys and ensuring proper implementation across all collaboration tools can be complex, and if done incorrectly, could lead to data inaccessibility. This approach focuses on data confidentiality, but neglects the critical aspects of access control and authentication, which are equally important for data integrity and availability. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves 1. Identifying the threat and vulnerability, in this case unauthorized remote access to collaboration data. 2. Assessing the impact, potential data breach, loss of sensitive information, reputational damage, and regulatory penalties. 3. Evaluating potential solutions, considering technical feasibility, cost, impact on productivity, and alignment with security policies and regulations. 4. Selecting the most appropriate control, choosing a solution that effectively mitigates the risk with the least negative impact on operations and compliance. 5. Implementing and monitoring, deploying the chosen solution and continuously reviewing its effectiveness. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are data-driven, proportionate, and aligned with organizational objectives and legal obligations. Question 10. The assessment process reveals that users are experiencing delays in receiving critical notifications from the Cisco Unified Communications Manager (CUCM) system, impacting their ability to respond promptly to urgent collaboration requests. The IT team has identified a potential configuration setting that could expedite notification delivery, but implementing this change would bypass the standard change management protocol that requires a formal request, impact analysis, and testing cycle. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation while adhering to professional IT governance principles? Option A. Develop a custom script to monitor and resend delayed notifications, bypassing the CUCM configuration entirely. Option B. Advise users to adjust their personal notification preferences to mitigate the perceived delays without altering the core system configuration. Option C. Initiate the formal change management process, including a detailed impact analysis, testing in a lab environment, and obtaining necessary approvals before implementing the configuration change. Option D. Immediately implement the configuration change to resolve the user-reported delays, documenting the change retrospectively after it is live. The correct answer is D. Immediately implement the configuration change to resolve the user-reported delays, documenting the change retrospectively after it is live. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in collaboration technology deployments, ensuring efficient and effective communication channels while adhering to established operational procedures. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for improved user experience with the long-term implications of process adherence and potential security vulnerabilities. Careful judgment is required to select a solution that is both technically sound and compliant with organizational policies. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured and documented method for implementing changes by following the established change management process, which includes thorough testing, impact analysis, and stakeholder approval. The organization mitigates risks associated with unauthorized or poorly planned modifications. This aligns with general IT governance principles that emphasize control, accountability, and risk management, ensuring that changes to critical collaboration systems are made in a predictable and auditable manner. While not explicitly tied to a specific U.S. regulation for this exam, this approach reflects industry best practices for IT service management, often mandated by internal policies that are themselves influenced by frameworks like ITIL, which are widely adopted in U.S. enterprises. An incorrect approach that bypasses the change management process for a quick fix introduces significant regulatory and ethical risks. This could lead to system instability, security breaches, or non-compliance with internal audit requirements. For instance, implementing a new feature without proper testing might inadvertently expose sensitive data, violating data privacy principles and potentially conflicting with regulations like HIPAA if patient data is involved in a healthcare collaboration context, or SOX if financial data is at risk. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on user requests without considering the broader system impact, can lead to a fragmented and unmanageable collaboration environment. This lack of systematic evaluation can result in duplicated functionalities, increased support overhead, and a failure to achieve the intended process optimization goals, ultimately undermining the integrity of the collaboration platform. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the user's need, then evaluating potential solutions against established organizational policies and technical feasibility. This involves a risk assessment, considering the potential impact of each solution on system stability, security, and compliance. The next step is to engage relevant stakeholders, including IT operations, security teams, and end-user representatives, to gather input and ensure alignment. Finally, the chosen solution should be implemented through a controlled process, such as a formal change management procedure, with clear documentation and post-implementation review. Question 11. Risk assessment procedures indicate that the organization's new Cisco collaboration platform will handle protected health information, FI, and financial transaction data. The implementation team is considering enabling a feature that allows for real-time, unencrypted screen sharing with external partners for quick troubleshooting. Which of the following approaches best aligns with U.S. federal regulatory frameworks like HIPAA and SOX and demonstrates professional due diligence in protecting sensitive data? Option A. Enable unencrypted screen sharing with external partners as a convenience feature, relying on user discretion to avoid sharing sensitive information. Option B. Utilize the vendor's default security settings for screen sharing, assuming they provide adequate protection for PHI and financial data. Option C. Restrict screen sharing to internal users only and require all external collaboration to be conducted via email or phone calls. Option D. Implement end-to-end encryption for all collaboration sessions, including screen sharing, and establish strict access controls and audit logging for external sharing activities. The correct answer is D. Implement end-to-end encryption for all collaboration sessions, including screen sharing, and establish strict access controls and audit logging for external sharing activities. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing collaboration technologies, ensuring secure and compliant communication across diverse user groups and devices. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for seamless collaboration with the stringent requirements of data privacy and security regulations. Misinterpreting or inadequately addressing these requirements can lead to significant legal repercussions, reputational damage, and loss of trust from users and stakeholders. The complexity arises from the interconnectedness of various collaboration services, messaging, voice, video, and the potential for sensitive information to be transmitted. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the specific collaboration services being deployed and their data handling practices against the relevant regulatory framework. For the CLCOR exam, this would typically involve understanding U.S. federal regulations such as HIPAA for healthcare, SOX for financial services, and general data privacy laws like GDPR. Though the exam jurisdiction is U.S., understanding global trends is often implied in core technologies and CCPA. The focus should be on implementing technical controls and policy configurations that align with these regulations. This includes, but is not limited to, end-to-end encryption for sensitive communications, robust access controls, audit logging, and data retention policies. By proactively identifying and mitigating risks through a compliance-driven design, the organization demonstrates due diligence and adheres to its legal and ethical obligations. This approach ensures that the collaboration solution not only meets business needs, but also operates within the bounds of the law, protecting both the organization and its users. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to prioritize user convenience and feature adoption over security and compliance. This might involve enabling features like unencrypted guest access for external collaboration, or allowing the storage of sensitive data on less secure endpoints without proper controls. Such an approach directly violates regulatory requirements for data protection and confidentiality, potentially leading to breaches and significant penalties. Another incorrect approach is to assume that the vendor's default security settings are sufficient. While vendors often provide robust security features, they are typically configurable and may not align with the specific regulatory obligations of the deploying organization. Relying solely on defaults without a tailored assessment and configuration is a failure of due diligence and can leave the organization exposed to compliance violations. A third incorrect approach is to implement security measures in a piecemeal fashion, addressing individual features without a holistic understanding of the data flow and potential vulnerabilities across the entire collaboration ecosystem. This can create gaps in security and compliance, as data might be protected in one component but exposed in another. A comprehensive, integrated approach is essential for effective risk management, Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to implementing collaboration technologies. This involves 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape relevant to the organization's industry and geographic location. 2. Identifying sensitive data that will be transmitted or stored within the collaboration platform. 3. Mapping data flows and user interactions to potential security and compliance risks. 4. Designing and configuring the collaboration solution with security and compliance as foundational requirements, not afterthoughts. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating security and compliance measures as the technology evolves and regulations change. 6. Documenting all decisions and configurations to demonstrate due diligence. Question 12. The efficiency study reveals that while the organization has invested in advanced Cisco collaboration solutions, user adoption rates remain low and productivity gains are not being realized. The primary complaint from end users is a lack of understanding regarding the full capabilities of the tools and how they integrate into daily workflows. The IT department is under pressure to demonstrate ROI and improve overall communication effectiveness. Which of the following strategies is the most effective for addressing the situation and ensuring successful adoption of the Cisco collaboration technologies? Option A. Mandate the use of all new collaboration features immediately and provide a single, comprehensive online knowledge base for users to consult as needed. Option B. Conduct a series of advanced technical deep dive sessions for IT staff only, with the expectation that they will then cascade knowledge to end users through informal channels. Option C. Implement a comprehensive, multi-stage training program that includes hands-on workshops, role-specific guidance, and ongoing support resources, coupled with a phased rollout of new features based on user feedback. Option D. Focus solely on optimizing the underlying network infrastructure to ensure the technical performance of the collaboration tools, assuming that improved performance will naturally drive adoption. Correct answer is C. Implement a comprehensive, multi-stage training program that includes hands-on workshops, role-specific guidance, and ongoing support resources, coupled with a phased rollout of new features based on user feedback. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a significant bottleneck in the organization's internal communication flow, specifically impacting the deployment and adoption of new Cisco collaboration tools. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing technical implementation with user experience and organizational change management, all while adhering to established best practices and potential regulatory considerations for data handling and communication. The core challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the inefficiency and proposing a solution that is both technically sound and practically implementable within the existing organizational structure and user skill sets. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, user-centric rollout strategy. This involves comprehensive training tailored to different user groups, clear communication channels for support, and iterative feedback loops to refine the deployment process. This aligns with professional ethics by ensuring that technology adoption is facilitated in a way that empowers users, minimizes disruption, and maximizes the return on investment in collaboration technologies. It also implicitly supports principles of good governance by ensuring that technology is implemented responsibly and effectively. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on technical configuration without considering user adoption would fail to address the root cause of the inefficiency. This represents a professional failure by neglecting the human element of technology implementation, leading to underutilization of the tools and wasted resources. Could also lead to frustration among employees, impacting overall productivity and morale. Another incorrect approach that bypasses user training and relies on self-service documentation alone would be professionally inadequate. While documentation is important, it is often insufficient for complex collaboration platforms. This approach fails to provide adequate support, potentially leading to incorrect usage, security vulnerabilities, and a perception that the organization does not value its employees' learning and development. A third incorrect approach that involves a big bang rollout of all features simultaneously without pilot testing or phased adoption would be a significant professional misstep. This can overwhelm users, create widespread confusion, and lead to a high rate of failure in adoption. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and an inability to manage the complexities of organizational change. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough assessment of the current state, identification of key stakeholders, and a clear understanding of the desired outcomes. It requires a balanced consideration of technical requirements, user needs, and organizational capacity for change. A structured approach, incorporating pilot programs, user feedback, and continuous improvement, is essential for successful technology deployment and adoption. Question 13. The control framework reveals a potential security vulnerability in the collaboration platform. A senior executive requests immediate access to detailed user communication logs to investigate a suspected internal data leak. The administrator has the technical capability to access these logs directly, but is aware that such access, without explicit authorization and a defined audit trail, could violate data privacy policies and potentially regulatory requirements. Option A. Advise the executive to gather information through publicly available channels and avoid direct access to sensitive logs. Option B. Grant the executive temporary administrative privileges to access the logs themselves. Option C. Access the logs directly to investigate the executive's concern, documenting the access for later review. Option D. Inform the executive that direct access to communication logs is not permitted without a formal security incident investigation request, and involve the security team. The correct answer is C. Access the logs directly to investigate the executive's concern, documenting the access for later review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain data privacy and security, particularly when dealing with sensitive collaboration data. The core conflict arises from a request that, while seemingly beneficial for troubleshooting, could inadvertently expose confidential information if not handled with extreme care and adherence to established protocols. The need to balance operational efficiency with regulatory compliance and ethical responsibility requires a nuanced approach. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data protection and adheres to the principles of least privilege and explicit consent. By involving the security team and obtaining explicit authorization, the administrator ensures that any access to sensitive data is documented, justified, and compliant with relevant data privacy regulations. This proactive stance mitigates the risk of unauthorized disclosure and upholds the trust placed in the IT department. An incorrect approach that involves directly accessing the logs without proper authorization or oversight is professionally unacceptable. This failure constitutes a breach of data privacy regulations, as it bypasses established security control designed to protect sensitive information. Such an action could lead to significant legal and reputational damage for the organization. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the request due to potential risks, fails to address a legitimate operational need and could hinder effective troubleshooting, potentially impacting business continuity. This demonstrates a lack of proactive problem-solving and a failure to balance security with operational requirements. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core ethical and regulatory considerations. This involves understanding the potential impact of any action on data privacy, security, and compliance. Next, they should assess the request against established organizational policies and procedures. If a request appears to conflict with these, seeking guidance from relevant stakeholders, such as the security team or legal counsel, is crucial. Finally, the decision should be based on a thorough risk assessment, ensuring that the chosen course of action is both effective and compliant. Question 14. Assessment of the most effective strategy for integrating a new Cisco Unified Communications Manager (CLCOR) feature into an existing enterprise environment, considering the need for rapid deployment while adhering to established IT governance and security protocols. Option A. Integrate the new feature deployment within the existing documented change management framework, ensuring review, approval, testing, and documentation. Option B. Deploy the new feature immediately to meet business demands, relying on informal knowledge transfer among the technical team for configuration and troubleshooting. Option C. Implement the feature directly based on vendor documentation and recommendations without formal internal review or change control processes. Option D. Prioritize the new feature deployment by bypassing standard change control procedures to expedite delivery, documenting the changes retrospectively if time permits. The correct answer is A. Integrate the new feature deployment within the existing, documented change management framework, ensuring review, approval, testing, and documentation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT environments where the rapid deployment of new collaboration features can outpace the formal change management and documentation processes. The pressure to deliver functionality quickly can lead to ad hoc configurations that, while initially functional, create technical debt and security vulnerabilities. The professional challenge lies in balancing the business need for agility with the imperative to maintain a stable, secure, and compliant infrastructure. Ignoring established processes for expediency risks noncompliance with internal policies and potentially external regulations if data privacy or security is compromised. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves integrating the new feature deployment within the existing, documented change management framework. This ensures that all changes are reviewed, approved, tested, and documented according to established procedures. This aligns with best practices for IT governance and operational excellence, which are implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that mandate controlled and auditable IT operations. By following the established process, the organization demonstrates due diligence in managing its IT environment, minimizing risks of unintended consequences, and ensuring that the new feature is deployed in a secure and compliant manner. This proactive approach is essential for maintaining system integrity and meeting potential audit requirements. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing the feature without formal change control and documentation is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses critical review stages designed to identify potential security flaws, conflicts with existing systems, or noncompliance with data handling policies. This creates an unmanaged risk, making the system vulnerable to breaches and difficult to troubleshoot or audit. Deploying the feature solely based on vendor recommendations without internal validation and risk assessment ignores the organization's specific security posture and compliance obligations. This can lead to misconfigurations that violate data privacy regulations or security standards. Relying on informal knowledge transfer among team members, while seemingly efficient, is a failure of proper documentation and knowledge management. This approach is not auditable, makes onboarding new team members difficult, and increases the risk of errors or inconsistencies in configuration over time, potentially leading to compliance issues. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to IT deployments. This involves understanding the business requirements, assessing the technical implications and risks of any proposed change, and then selecting the most appropriate deployment strategy that aligns with organizational policies, security standards, and regulatory requirements. The decision-making process should prioritize controlled, documented, and tested implementations, even when faced with time pressures. When in doubt, consulting with security, compliance, and governance teams is crucial. The goal is to achieve a balance between innovation and operational integrity, ensuring that new technologies enhance rather than compromise the organization's security and compliance posture. Question 15. Comparative studies suggest that network administrators often face situations where they discover a critical security vulnerability that could expose sensitive customer data. In such a scenario, the administrator has identified a specific configuration error in a Cisco collaboration platform that, if exploited, could allow unauthorized access to call logs and user presence information. The organization has a documented security policy that mandates reporting all discovered vulnerabilities to the IT security team via a formal ticket system, with a service level agreement, SLA, for initial response within 24 hours and remediation within 72 hours for critical issues. The administrator is concerned that the IT security team might be slow to respond, or that the remediation process could exceed the SLA, leaving the organization exposed. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the network administrator? Option A. Report the vulnerability through the formal ticket system as per the organizational security policy and await the IT security team's response and remediation plan. Option B. Publicly disclose the discovered vulnerability on a technology forum to raise awareness and pressure the organization to act quickly. Option C. Inform a trusted senior colleague outside of the IT department about the vulnerability to gauge their opinion on how to proceed. Option D. Immediately attempt to rectify the configuration error themselves, documenting the changes made for later submission to the IT security team. The correct answer is D. Immediately attempt to rectify the configuration error themselves, documenting the changes made for later submission to the IT security team. Explanation. The scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in IT environments where a network administrator discovers a potential security vulnerability that, if exploited, could lead to significant data breaches. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to address the vulnerability with the established procedures for reporting and remediation, which may involve delays or require approval from multiple stakeholders. The administrator also faces the pressure of potential repercussions if the vulnerability is exploited before it's fixed, or if their unauthorized actions lead to further complications. The correct approach involves adhering to established security policies and reporting protocols. This demonstrates professional integrity and accountability. By documenting the findings and reporting them through the designated channels, the administrator ensures that the issue is addressed systematically and with appropriate oversight. This aligns with best practices in cybersecurity and IT governance, which emphasize transparency, collaboration, and adherence to organizational policies. It also protects the administrator from potential disciplinary action for unauthorized system modifications. An incorrect approach would be to immediately attempt to patch the vulnerability without authorization. This bypasses established change management processes, potentially introducing new risks or instability into the network. It also undermines the authority of the security team and management, creating a precedent for unauthorized actions. Such an approach could lead to a violation of company policy and potentially regulatory noncompliance if the unauthorized changes inadvertently compromise data privacy or security controls mandated by relevant regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the vulnerability due to fear of repercussions or perceived lack of authority. This is a dereliction of duty and a significant security risk. It directly violates the ethical obligation to protect organizational assets and data. This inaction could lead to severe consequences for the organization, including financial losses, reputational damage, and regulatory penalties, and the administrator could be held personally liable for negligence. A third incorrect approach would be to disclose the vulnerability externally to a third party or publicly without proper authorization. This is a severe breach of confidentiality and could be exploited by malicious actors, exacerbating the security risk. It violates trust and could lead to legal ramifications for both the administrator and the organization, potentially contravening data protection laws. The professional reasoning process in such situations should involve 1. Identifying the risk and its potential impact. 2. Consulting organizational policies and procedures for security incident response and change management. 3. Documenting all findings meticulously. 4. Reporting the issue through the appropriate channels to the designated personnel or teams. 5. Collaborating with the relevant stakeholders to implement a timely and authorized solution. 6. Following up to ensure the vulnerability is addressed. Question 16. The monitoring system demonstrates an unusual pattern of latency and packet loss, specifically impacting a particular collaboration endpoint during video conferencing sessions. The administrator needs to diagnose the root cause to restore service quality. Option A. Immediately escalate the issue to senior management, requesting a full audit of all collaboration sessions on the affected endpoint. Option B. Directly access and review the recorded content of the collaboration sessions occurring on the affected endpoint to identify any user-initiated actions causing the issue. Option C. Analyze network traffic metadata and session statistics for the affected endpoint, focusing on packet arrival times, jitter, and retransmissions, without examining the content of the communication. Option D. Ignore the monitoring alerts as they may be false positives and do not want to risk any privacy concerns. The correct answer is C. Analyze network traffic metadata and session statistics for the affected endpoint, focusing on packet arrival times, jitter, and retransmissions, without examining the content of the communication. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain the privacy of individuals while also fulfilling the technical requirements of network monitoring and troubleshooting. The core tension lies between the need to identify and resolve network issues that impact collaboration services and the potential for such monitoring to inadvertently capture sensitive personal communications. The CLCOR exam emphasizes the importance of understanding and implementing collaboration solutions responsibly, which includes adhering to privacy principles. The correct approach prioritizes a privacy-preserving method of investigation. By focusing on metadata and traffic patterns rather than the content of communications, the administrator upholds the principle of least privilege and minimizes the intrusion into user privacy. This aligns with general ethical guidelines for IT professionals and the spirit of regulations that protect personal data, even if specific U.S. regulations are not explicitly detailed in the CLCOR syllabus. The goal is to achieve operational objectives without compromising user trust or violating privacy expectations. An incorrect approach that involves directly accessing and reviewing the content of collaboration sessions, even with the stated intent of troubleshooting, represents a significant ethical and potentially regulatory failure. This action oversteps the bounds of necessary investigation and constitutes an unwarranted intrusion into private communications. It violates the expectation of confidentiality inherent in collaboration tools and could lead to a breach of trust, reputational damage, and potential legal repercussions if specific data privacy laws were applicable. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the monitoring alerts entirely, is professionally irresponsible. While it avoids the privacy issue, it fails to address potential service disruptions that impact users. This negligence can lead to prolonged outages, decreased productivity, and a loss of confidence in the collaboration infrastructure. A professional must balance competing demands, and ignoring critical alerts is not a viable solution. A further incorrect approach, such as immediately escalating the issue to management without attempting any preliminary, privacy-conscious investigation, demonstrates a lack of technical initiative and problem-solving skills. While escalation is sometimes necessary, it should follow a reasonable effort to diagnose the problem. This approach also risks creating unnecessary alarm and consuming management resources without a clear understanding of the situation. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a tiered approach. First, attempt to diagnose the issue using methods that do not compromise privacy, e.g., analyzing network performance metrics, call detail records, or session metadata. If these methods are insufficient, then consider more targeted but still privacy-respecting investigations. Only as a last resort and with appropriate authorization and clear justification should content-level analysis be considered, and even then, it should be strictly limited to the minimum necessary to resolve the issue. Question 17. To address the challenge of implementing a new enterprise-wide collaboration platform that will impact various departments with distinct operational needs and user skill sets, which stakeholder-centric approach is most likely to ensure successful adoption and maximize business value? Option A. Relying exclusively on the recommendations of the chosen technology vendor to guide the selection and implementation process. Option B. Engaging representatives from key business units, including end users and departmental managers, to gather comprehensive requirements and validate proposed solutions against their specific workflows and adoption capabilities. Option C. Prioritizing the technical preferences of the IT department to ensure seamless integration with existing infrastructure. Option D. Selecting the most cost-effective solution based on initial vendor quotes, assuming that all platforms offer similar core functionalities. The correct answer is C. Prioritizing the technical preferences of the IT department to ensure seamless integration with existing infrastructure. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in implementing new collaboration technologies, ensuring that the chosen solution not only meets technical requirements, but also aligns with the organization's strategic goals and the expectations of its diverse user base. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for functionality with the long-term implications for user adoption, productivity, and overall business value. Careful judgment is required to avoid a technically sound but practically ineffective deployment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic understanding of the project's impact. By engaging key stakeholders from different departments, the project team can gather comprehensive requirements, identify potential adoption barriers, and ensure that the chosen solution addresses the specific needs and workflows of each user group. This collaborative approach fosters buy-in, reduces resistance to change, and ultimately increases the likelihood of successful adoption and return on investment. This aligns with general principles of project management and change management, which are implicitly expected in professional IT implementations, even without specific regulatory mandates for this particular technology. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the IT department's technical preferences would fail to consider the end-user experience and business impact. This could lead to a solution that is difficult to use, does not integrate well with existing workflows, and ultimately results in low adoption rates and wasted resources. This represents a failure in professional due diligence and a disregard for the organization's overall objectives. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the cheapest available solution without adequate consideration for functionality or scalability would likely result in a system that is inadequate for current needs and cannot support future growth. This is a short-sighted decision that undermines the long-term viability of the collaboration platform and can lead to significant costs and disruptions down the line. This demonstrates a lack of strategic thinking and a failure to act in the best long-term interest of the organization. A third incorrect approach that relies solely on vendor recommendations without independent validation risks adopting a solution that may not be the best fit for the organization's unique environment. While vendors have expertise, their primary goal is to sell their products. Without internal validation and stakeholder input, the organization may overlook critical requirements or potential drawbacks. This represents a failure to exercise independent professional judgment and due diligence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach that begins with clearly defining project objectives and scope. This should be followed by a thorough stakeholder analysis to identify all relevant parties and their interests. Requirements gathering should be a collaborative process, actively seeking input from all user groups. Solution evaluation should be based on a comprehensive set of criteria that includes technical capabilities, user experience, scalability, security, and total cost of ownership. Finally, a robust change management and training plan is essential to ensure successful user adoption. Question 18. The performance metrics show a consistent, albeit minor, increase in latency for encrypted voice calls originating from a specific subnet, coinciding with a recent update to the collaboration platform's security modules. Option A. Increase the allocated bandwidth for the affected subnet, assuming the latency is purely a network congestion issue. Option B. Ignore the latency increase as it is minor and does not significantly impact call intelligibility, focusing instead on other reported issues. Option C. Investigate the updated security modules for potential configuration issues or resource contention impacting encryption/decryption processes, and analyze network path latency specifically for encrypted traffic. Option D. Immediately revert the security module update to restore previous performance levels and address user complaints about call quality. The correct answer is C. Investigate the updated security modules for potential configuration issues or resource contention impacting encryption/decryption processes, and analyze network path latency specifically for encrypted traffic. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing collaboration technologies, balancing user experience with security and compliance requirements. The professional challenge lies in interpreting performance metrics that indicate potential security vulnerabilities without directly impacting immediate functionality. The decision maker must consider the long-term implications of security risks against the immediate need for user productivity and the potential for disruption if security measures are overly aggressive. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, risk-based evaluation aligned with established security frameworks and Cisco's recommended best practices for collaboration deployments. This involves not just identifying the anomaly, but also investigating its root cause, assessing its potential impact, and implementing proportionate controls. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and defense in depth, ensuring that security measures are effective without unnecessarily hindering legitimate collaboration. Furthermore, it adheres to the implicit regulatory expectation of due diligence in protecting sensitive communication data, even if specific U.S. regulations are not explicitly cited in the CLCOR exam context. The underlying principles of data protection and system integrity are universally applicable in professional IT environments. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate performance degradation without investigating the security implications fails to address the underlying risk. This could lead to a false sense of security if the performance issue is a symptom of a more significant security breach or misconfiguration. Another incorrect approach, which involves immediately disabling features based on a single metric without understanding the context, is overly reactive and can disrupt essential business functions, leading to user frustration and reduced productivity. This demonstrates a lack of analytical rigor and a failure to apply a structured problem-solving methodology. A third incorrect approach, which involves escalating the issue without any initial investigation, wastes valuable resources and delays resolution, indicating a lack of initiative and problem-solving skills. The professional decision-making process should involve 1. Acknowledging and documenting the performance anomaly. 2. Initiating a structured investigation to identify the root cause, considering both functional and security aspects. 3. Assessing the potential impact of the anomaly, including security risks. 4. Developing and implementing a solution that addresses the root cause while minimizing disruption. 5. Verifying the effectiveness of the solution and documenting the resolution. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, proportionate, and aligned with both operational and security objectives. Question 19. System analysis indicates a US-based financial services firm is implementing a hybrid Cisco collaboration solution, integrating on-premises Cisco Unified Communications Manager, CLCOR, with Cisco Webex for messaging and meetings. The firm handles sensitive customer financial data and is subject to regulations like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA. Which of the following deployment strategies best ensures compliance and security for customer data within this hybrid collaboration environment? Option A. Implementing separate, independent security protocols for the on-premises CLCOR and Cisco Webex environments without a unified policy or management framework to allow for greater flexibility in each component's configuration. Option B. Relying on the default security settings provided by Cisco Webex for all cloud-based collaboration activities, assuming that these settings are sufficient for meeting GLBA compliance. Option C. Prioritizing the use of free or lower-cost collaboration tools that integrate with the existing infrastructure, even if their security certifications and compliance documentation are less robust, to reduce overall project costs. Option D. Encrypting all voice and video traffic between on-premises CLCOR and Cisco Webex using SRTP and TLS, implementing strong multi-factor authentication for all user access to Webex, and ensuring that data residency policies for Webex are configured to align with GLBA requirements for data handling and storage. The correct answer is D. Encrypting all voice and video traffic between on-premises CLCOR and Cisco Webex using SRTP and TLS, implementing strong multi-factor authentication for all user access to Webex, and ensuring that data residency policies for Webex are configured to align with GLBA requirements for data handling and storage. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Implementing a Cisco collaboration solution involves integrating various technologies like voice, video, messaging, and presence. Ensuring secure and reliable communication across these platforms is paramount. A common challenge arises when organizations adopt a hybrid model, combining on-premises infrastructure with cloud-based services. This introduces complexities in managing security policies, data residency, and compliance across different environments. The professional challenge lies in balancing the benefits of cloud agility and scalability with the stringent security and regulatory requirements that govern collaboration data, especially in a regulated industry. Missteps can lead to data breaches, compliance violations, and significant reputational damage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive security strategy that leverages Cisco's built-in security features and adheres to established best practices for hybrid cloud environments. This includes implementing robust authentication and authorization mechanisms, encrypting data in transit and at rest, and establishing clear data governance policies that align with relevant regulations. For instance, in the U.S. context, organizations must consider regulations like HIPAA for healthcare data or SOX for financial data, which dictate how sensitive information is handled and protected. A best practice is to utilize Cisco's Unified Communications Manager, CLCOR, security features, such as TLS for signaling and SRTP for media encryption, and to extend these principles to cloud-based services like Cisco Webex. This ensures a consistent security posture across the entire collaboration ecosystem, minimizing the attack surface and maintaining data integrity and confidentiality. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to solely rely on the default security settings of cloud-based collaboration services without integrating them into the broader organizational security framework. This creates security gaps and fails to address the specific compliance needs of the organization, potentially violating data protection laws by not ensuring adequate controls for sensitive information. Another incorrect approach is to implement disparate security measures for on-premises and cloud components without a unified management strategy. This leads to inconsistencies in policy enforcement, making it difficult to audit compliance and increasing the risk of misconfigurations that could expose sensitive collaboration data. Such an approach would likely fail to meet the requirements of regulations that mandate a holistic view of data security and privacy. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize cost savings over security and compliance by choosing less secure or non-compliant cloud services. This is a direct violation of ethical responsibilities and regulatory mandates, as it knowingly exposes the organization and its users to risks, potentially leading to severe legal and financial penalties. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based approach, thoroughly assessing the security and compliance implications of any collaboration technology deployment. This involves understanding the data flows, identifying sensitive information, mapping it to relevant regulatory requirements. A layered security strategy, encompassing network security, endpoint security, and application-level security, is crucial. Regular security audits, vulnerability assessments, and continuous monitoring are essential to maintain a secure and compliant collaboration environment. When dealing with hybrid environments, a unified management plane for security policies and access controls is a best practice. Professionals should always consult relevant Cisco documentation and industry compliance guidelines to ensure their implementations meet the highest standards. Question 20. System analysis indicates a US-based financial services firm is deploying a new Cisco collaboration platform to facilitate internal and external communications, including the sharing of sensitive client financial data. The firm operates under strict U.S. financial regulations that mandate robust data protection and secure communication channels. The IT security team is concerned about potential unauthorized access and data exfiltration. Which of the following deployment strategies best addresses the firm's security and regulatory compliance requirements while enabling effective collaboration? Option A. Focus solely on encrypting external communications, while internal communications are left unencrypted to improve performance and ease of use. Option B. Deploy the collaboration platform with default security settings and rely on existing network-level firewalls to protect communications, prioritizing rapid deployment to meet business needs. Option C. Implement end-to-end encryption for all voice, video, and messaging, enforce multi-factor authentication for all user access, and establish granular access control policies based on user roles and data sensitivity, alongside comprehensive logging and auditing. Option D. Enable all collaboration features without specific security configurations, assuming that user awareness training will mitigate most security risks. The correct answer is C. Implement end-to-end encryption for all voice, video, and messaging, enforce multi-factor authentication for all user access, and establish granular access control policies based on user roles and data sensitivity, alongside comprehensive logging and auditing. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise collaboration deployments, ensuring secure and compliant communication across diverse endpoints and network segments. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for seamless user experience and efficient collaboration with the stringent security and privacy requirements mandated by regulatory frameworks applicable to US-based financial institutions. Specifically, the CLCOR exam syllabus emphasizes the importance of understanding and implementing security features within Cisco collaboration solutions, including encryption, authentication, and access control, all of which are critical for meeting compliance obligations like those potentially governed by SEC regulations or NIST guidelines, relevant to data protection and secure communications in the financial sector. The pressure to deploy quickly without compromising security or compliance adds a layer of professional challenge, requiring a thorough understanding of the technology's capabilities and limitations in a regulated environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a multifaceted strategy that prioritizes security and compliance from the outset. This includes implementing end-to-end encryption for sensitive communications, such as voice and video calls, using protocols like SRTP and TLS. It also necessitates robust authentication mechanisms, such as multi-factor authentication, MFA, for user access to collaboration services, and granular access control policies to restrict data sharing and communication based on user roles and data sensitivity. Furthermore, regular security audits, logging of all communication activities, and adherence to data retention policies are crucial for demonstrating compliance and mitigating risks. This approach aligns with best practices for securing sensitive data in regulated industries, ensuring that the collaboration solution not only functions effectively, but also meets the legal and ethical obligations of protecting customer information and maintaining operational integrity. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to prioritize user convenience and rapid deployment over security and compliance. This might involve enabling features without proper encryption, using weak authentication methods, or neglecting to implement access controls. Such an approach would create significant regulatory and ethical vulnerabilities, potentially leading to data breaches, unauthorized access to sensitive financial information, and severe penalties under U.S. financial regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to implement security measures in isolation without considering their impact on collaboration workflows or user experience. This could result in a system that is technically secure but unusable, hindering productivity and leading to workarounds that bypass security controls, thereby undermining the overall security posture. A third incorrect approach would be to rely solely on network-level security, without securing the collaboration endpoints themselves. This leaves the system vulnerable to attacks targeting individual devices, compromising the confidentiality and integrity of communications. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with implementing collaboration solutions in regulated environments must adopt a risk-based approach. This involves identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, assessing their impact on business operations and compliance, and implementing appropriate controls. A structured decision-making process should include 1. Understanding the specific regulatory landscape applicable to the organization and the data being handled. 2. Conducting a thorough risk assessment of the collaboration solution's components and potential attack vectors. 3. Designing and implementing security controls that are proportionate to the identified risks and align with regulatory requirements. 4. Regularly testing and auditing the security measures to ensure their effectiveness. 5. Establishing clear policies and procedures for the use and management of the collaboration system, including incident response plans. This systematic approach ensures that security and compliance are integral to the solution, rather than an afterthought.